get the stand up, man. Old school, and on my head about this thing, but you know we gotta get in here and talk about these Buccaneers. I got the beat. You got the beat, then I got that word. Let's get it then. There goes my brother Dutch, doing this thing with Pro Tools, cooking up track for my main man, Old School, #1 podcast in Tampa Bay. Why is that, Frank? Cause we talking Tampa Bay. Old School on the mic, rapping about them Bucks, keeping things in perspective, man, that's what's up. Always on the chill side, he's never erupt. We talking charity, so we talking what the buck. Taking off like a rocket with all the lace topics for the love of the Bucks, so no, it ain't for profit. You can roll with yours and I'll just roll with mine. I'll never jump a ship, man, I'm a ride or die. Now tell me what the deal is, Old School is the realest. If Dutch on the track, man, I know y'all gonna feel it. So tune in every week, and next week just repeat and listen out for Frank, cause I be rocking till the. Now who's that on me? That's my man, Old School, killing them with the podcast. He's so cool, the buck really matters, y'all. Just remember that. Now keep the music pumping, Jay Dutch on the track.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Old School. We're trying out a bunch of new technology here tonight. I am fortunate, again, to be joined by Mark Cook from pewterreport.com. We got all sorts of craziness going on here. We're going to fade out the music for you. And we had some catches, I think, in the audio playback, so we'll try and work on that. We appreciate you guys letting us dog food this, as it said. So, at any rate, welcome to the new chat room. We got a lot of folks over there in the new chat room, which is fun. So you're liking the new layout? That's good. I'm gonna try and play with some video things to get Mark in the frame as well, so I don't have to transition over constantly. But I'll show you the lovely Ginger Badass over there. Mark, how are you doing tonight, man?
I'm good. I would prefer not to be on camera.
All right, well, you're going to be on camera, and you have to pretend like you know how to use a mic as well, so go ahead and eat that thing real quick. You've got control over there. You can move it around.
All right.
He's a radio professional, ladies and gentlemen. He's just not used to all this high-tech stuff. It'll be totally fine. I got a pop fill, 2 of them.
Hello,
he's got a dip in, too, so we're going to make sure that his dip doesn't... Hey, listen, everyone knows you dip. Anyway, welcome to the podcast. This is What the Buck. I am Old School, your host, and I have, like I said, Ginger Badass from pewterreport.com here. This should be a good show, a lot of fun. This format is always fun. This is almost like a mini round table. It's like a square table. But we're going to be trying to do some more of those as well. So as you guys are watching the show tonight, make sure you get your questions into the chat room. We'll try and interact with you. We will be doing Skulls and Swords tonight as well. For those of you who are new or don't remember, Skull is the bad one. That's the bonehead play of the week. Buckshot would also prefer you not be on video, but Buckshot's an asshole, so that doesn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form. But he's a lovable asshole.
Listen, I'm at least you're not Casey Phillips, the Buccaneer girl. Then I would look really bad. Next to you, we're comparable, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you're probably better looking than me, which is troubling. But at any rate, the light is washing out his pale skin. Shut up, Wobbles. Anyway, welcome to the broadcast. I want to start by thanking our sponsors. I want to thank Elderford of Tampa. I want to thank Steakhouse Elite, and I want to thank the Code Rum as well. You guys have been phenomenal. Wing House as well has been there with us for a number of years. We're looking at some changes on our watch parties. I'll let you know what's going on with that. We're probably going over to the Brown, not Derby, Brown
UPS
Boxer.
truck.
The brown Boxer. No, not the UPS truck. The brown Boxer. I've got the details. We'll talk about it as we get into this as well. Super fans are going to be out there in full force. We're going to be doing our toy drive through What the Buck Really Matters, which we're doing for the entire month of November. The toy drive is actually for What the Buck Really Matters. We're going to be using that to get the toys through the spring and a number of other sources. It's not to then go to Toys for Tots. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we are doing that as our own effort. So if you want to bring an unwrapped toy, we'll make sure we get those to the people who need them. Additionally, I want to thank the NFC East. Right, the last 2 tailgates have been absolutely phenomenal. The Giants fans were terrific. The Cowboys fans were terrific. And I don't mean to beat up the Bucs fans, because Bucs fans have certainly endured a tremendous amount of pain. But our tailgates, we look at the revenues from our tailgates every week, and the last home tailgate we had was brutal. We lost money once this year, which is troubling, and we made, I think, about $350 for making strides for breast cancer, which is very, very small for us. But I will say that because of the generosity of the fans, the Bucs fans who were there, as well as the Giants and the Dallas Cowboys fans who were used to paying like $1.50 to park, we made over $1,000 at each of those tailgates, so we'll probably do over $2,000 to Movember as a byproduct. So big shout out to all you guys who helped, the folks who were contributing, the folks who are on the team. That's why I had this silly mustache that Mark's probably wanted to laugh at since he got in the house.
I want to pull on it.
You want to pull on it?
Yeah.
Well, who wants a mustache ride? At any rate, I also want to remind you guys, the folks we listen to, obviously Pewter Report, and much to Mark's chagrin, sometimes Joe Bucks fan as well. Bucks Brief, we are in love with. Mild Man Crush with Chris. I think he's doing a great job. I think he's the best newcomer, and he's not even a newcomer anymore. Sandra P over at Bucks Nation. Also putting in a lot of work over there, guys. You got a lot of great content out there. And that's not even mentioning Greg Allman and the guys, Luke Easterling, these guys who are tremendous. These are just the folks that are sort of what we call hashtag fringe media outside of the Pewter Report, Real Goliath. So we'll talk more about the watch party, but I want to kick this off. I want Mark to actually lead the show a little bit tonight. You're on campus all the time. And when I say on campus, because I worked at Microsoft, we called it campus at One Buck Place. How has the mood changed? Because it seems palpable. That game, and it's going to, you guys know I don't wear a cheerleader skirt. I don't wear bloomers. I don't do any of that stuff. But I have to tell you, there's something that I think was special about what happened against Dallas. I'm hoping I'm right. Maybe I'm just a fanboy. Who knows? But it feels something special. Mark, tell me what it's been like around One Buck Place, please.
Well, today was really our first opportunity to get back over there since the win on Sunday. And, if you haven't watched Jameis yet, today was one of his better press conferences. He was lively. He was funny. He's always pretty engaging, but he's always kind of been a cliche machine, and obviously by design. That's what the PR staff does, and really a lot of NFL players are like that. But, today I think he, was more genuine in his thoughts and his quotes. And, spoke more from the heart than maybe he has in the past. Again, it's not a knock on him. He's a new guy. He's learning the ropes here. But just was a really upbeat guy. Lovey's been upbeat, obviously, since that press conference on Sunday after the game. And inside the locker room today was just a laid-back atmosphere. Everybody was pretty cool. Wasn't a crowded, open locker room today. There were some guys in some meetings and grabbing lunch because what they do is they go out on the field for a walkthrough earlier in the day. Then they come in and we have our press conferences on Wednesday with Dirk Cutter and with Jameis Winston. Then the guys grab lunch. Sometimes they have meetings before they go back out on the field, which practice starts at 1:30 every day. So anyway, we had an opportunity to talk to some players today. The mood's good. It's as to be expected with a winning football team. And I say winning in the sense that, they won the game the other day. And they've won 4 games. I know, they're not New England. They're not Cincinnati. Well, Cincinnati's lost since then, but you understand what I'm saying. They're not a, leading the division Carolina Panthers type team, but I think people and I say people, I think the team itself, and I know the staff does too, believes that maybe they've turned a little bit of a corner. If they go get blown out in Philadelphia this week, and it's possible. I mean, they're talking 45 degrees, 15 mile an hour
weather.
winds. Yes.
Oh, my
Remember,
Lord.
the Buccaneers have never won a game under 74 degrees. Is that right?
No.
No?
No.
Wrong stat? Okay.
But data doesn't really matter, and those sort of
Yeah.
trends don't matter either. And if it's 45 degrees and that scares you, you shouldn't be playing football. Yes, Nancy.
No, I agree. And it's a hostile road environment. We all know how Philly fans can be. But, I will say this again, being the homer that I am and the hack biased writer for Florida State, of course. I think Jameis kind of thrives on that. You know what I mean? I think he thrives on the nasty environment, the loud noise. I think it's more of a challenge for him. And to me, he's played better really on the road, if you look at the games, I think, than maybe even at home. Especially the first 2 games, the Tennessee game and then the Carolina game. So, overall, I think he's, he plays maybe a little bit better on the road. He concentrates a little bit more. I don't know what the reasons are, but, I expect him to play a better game than he did because, in all honesty, I mean, that was a C game for him on Sunday. I mean, I don't think it was it wasn't an above-average game. It wasn't a bad game. He did what he needed to do, but, he's played better as far as stats goes and things like that. And ultimately, all that matters, the only stat that matters is the win. But he'll have to play a little bit better, I believe. You're not going to go beat Philadelphia scoring 10 points. I just don't see this defense. Even if they have turned a corner, I don't know that they're going to – I just would not bet that the Buccaneers are going to hold the Eagles to 6 points by any stretch.
Well, what's interesting is you've got a great comparison the week before when the Eagles and the Cowboys faced each other, and they looked inept as hell on defense. They scored a bajillion points between each other.
Right.
They looked like mirror images of one another in a lot of ways, right? They were playing a lot of man coverage. Guys were running away from each other. And yet Dallas came down here largely the same. Mm-hmm. And played a team that most people give no credit and sat there with 3 points on the board forever, right? So I'm interested to see what that defense can do, against the Philadelphia Eagles because the Eagles are getting a lot of credit. Chip Kelly obviously gets a lot of credit. What we saw this week, and I know that people are talking about it now, which is great. I think that the collective education of the media has grown tremendously, Mark, and I think you can attest to this. We're talking about things like what coverages we're in, and we actually are accurate. Right, folks aren't bullshitting their way through it. Right. So when you see June and Sterling Moore out there in press man, and you actually know what that means, That's different. Right, and so that changes the dynamic a little bit with Chip Kelly's offense. Chip Kelly's offense is predicated, and we'll talk about the Cowboys game, obviously, guys. We're not going to go past that, but Chip Kelly's offense is predicated on speed and space. It's all about geometry, believe it or not. It's about distance between targets. He believes he can overload any coverage, and given enough time, his quarterback can make the correct decision. It's a mathematics offense. It's brilliant. And as long as your guys don't die whilst running it, it works pretty damn well. Right. So what's going to be interesting is to see how that defense can hold up against that.
Yeah, it is. And that was a question, that we asked Lovie Smith today in his press conference. And, of course, he said, we're going to try and simulate it. But as you know, you can't simulate the Philadelphia offense with your scout squad. It's just
I don't know. Mike Glennon can run a spread, right?
Oh, absolutely.
As well as Mark Sanchez can or Sam Bradford. It's not like anyone's going to expect either one of those guys to hold the ball.
That's true. The pace is going to be fast. But as somebody else pointed out, and I can't remember, I would give him credit actually. The quicker that they run and the quicker they do their things, it really gives the Buccaneers offense more opportunities too, more plays. So, that gives Jameis Winston a little bit more opportunity to lead the offense as well. Because again, if Philadelphia is in an up-tempo mode, even if they drive down the field and score, that 7-minute drive is a 4-minute drive, and that's 3 more minutes the Buccaneers potentially have the football. If they score on one play, then it's a 15-second drive. But what I'm saying is, that's going to give the Buccaneer offense, I think, more opportunities as well. So not only does your defense have to be prepared, our offense is going to have to be prepared. Good news again, it's not going to be 90 degrees out there, and fatigue shouldn't be an issue with either one of these football teams. But it will take a little bit of time, and it wouldn't surprise me for the Eagles to get off to a decent start just because the Buccaneers, it doesn't matter, again, how you simulate it in practice. I don't know that you can replicate it with the guys you have on scout team or, in your practice squad. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. It wouldn't surprise me if Philadelphia gets off to a good start. But the key will be, how does Leslie and Lovie kind of adjust to things? As you mentioned, the two cornerbacks, Jude and Sterling. Gosh, and I asked Lovie about this today. I said, do you? And I tried to word it to where I wasn't coming across as a total ass, but basically I was asking him, do you wish you would have done this earlier in the season? Could 5 of those wins, a couple of those, been more wins? And of course, Lovie said he doesn't ever look back and with regret and those kind of things. But you wonder exactly what it was that Sterling Moore wasn't doing the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season that he's been able to do the last 2 weeks, and never really got an answer on that. But whatever it is, it's working right now, and we'll see if it continues to work. The one thing I love about Sterling is he's not afraid to go up and challenge a player. You know what I mean? And that's the one thing that we talked about on previous podcasts, the cornerbacks, allowing guys to get clean breaks off the line of scrimmage, if it's 3rd and 7, they're dropping 9 yards back. You know what I mean? And I understand the defense is predicated on not giving up the long ball. And that is one thing we haven't seen this football team do. There hasn't been any 70-yard bomb, touchdowns this year. But at the same time, we've seen teams dink and dunk and move down the field at will at times. So, but with the guys playing more press man coverage on the outside, the Buccaneers feeling more comfortable there. And I think decent safety play, particularly last week. I thought Chris Conte played well, and obviously Bradley McDougald had a good game. But looking back at the game film and some of the coaches' film, it just seemed like there was a different attitude and vibe. And you always say, and I still believe this, the defense is going to be, in most cases, they're going to kind of go the way of the front four. If you can get pressure in this defense, obviously that's going to help everybody behind them. But in the last 2 games, it seems like the back end, has helped everybody up front, which is kind of unusual. That's not the normal way to go as far as defense goes. Not the normal way you think, but for whatever reason, it's working, and hopefully it'll continue to work. It'll be real interesting to see exactly how the Buccaneers do. They catch a break though. Another backup quarterback. You and I, we all look at the schedule when it comes out in April, and we circle our wins and losses and expect things. And certainly Giants, Cowboys, Eagles, Colts, most of us would have assumed that, that's an 0-4 streak. But the Buccaneers, they could go 3-1. I'm not saying they will. But if they get through that at 2-2, I think that's a plus on the season for this football team. And with the Eagles playing a backup quarterback, the Cowboys playing a backup quarterback, and the Colts not having Andrew Luck, there's an opportunity for this team to at least go 2-2 over this 4-game stretch.
You know what's interesting, and I know that a lot of people lean on that, like, okay, well, we got guys out, so there's a better chance of us winning. I am such a believer in the parity of this league that stuff doesn't even impact me anymore. I don't really give a crap if it's...
But look at how they did last year against backup quarterbacks.
Right.
Derek Anderson, they did a great... No?
No.
Oh.
No, exactly.
Austin Davis?
Oh, wait. Right.
No.
See, and the contrarian position isn't accurate either, because if we go back far enough, we can find data that just says,
Right.
guess what? We lose more than we win because we have been the Bucks for a period of time, and we have sucked for a long time. Now, what I was excited when I look at the coach's film, and I didn't get a chance to do it the whole game, which pisses me off. You guys know I like to do that. What I sensed that day, and I heard a lot of people when I was leaving, we got this win, and we talked about an ugly win. Bucks fans are talking about that was an ugly win. Are you shitting me right now?
Yeah,
an ugly win?
Point,
we're going to judge quality of win?
Look, if the other team doesn't show up and they end up forfeiting the game.
Yeah, I'll take a forfeit.
Buccaneer
right
fans
now.
should be jumping
right
up
now.
and down.
If Chip Kelly calls it, dude, we don't really want to play.
Right.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Chip.
Yep.
But the fun part about it is what I saw, and when I talked a little bit at the beginning, I teased a little bit about how I saw something different. What I saw was that energy, and I've already been excited about your boy Jameis. I love what I'm seeing out of him. You said it was a C game for him. I think if you eliminate, there's something that's bothering the old school in me. And I'm going to go and tell you my skull for this week, and it's funny, Chris from Bucks Brief is going to disagree with me, and that's fine. We talked on Twitter about it this morning. Mike Evans catch the damn ball. I don't care that you caught 8 of them or however many. I don't care if you got 150 yards. I don't care what you did. That part is your job.
Right.
Right. You're expected to catch the ball. Now, if you
Right.
made a circus catch over 3 guys, yes, I get it. But if I hit you in the hands as a quarterback, catch the ball.
Yep.
Was it wet this week? No. Right? So whether it's not looking at the ball, letting it hit your pads, you didn't start playing this week. And I know that you may be, well, why are you picking on the only guy that's a real legitimate target? Because he's supposed to catch the ball.
Well, you got to think, though, he was a low-round draft pick. I mean,
Yeah,
he was only
absolutely.
the
That's
7th
true.
overall draft pick.
Very,
and,
very
and I
true.
see what you're saying, but I look at it a little bit the other way, maybe not as much as Bucks Brief does, but 126-yard game, drew a 43-yard pass interference penalty. That doesn't go in the stats, but it should in a sense. That's a pretty good day. All receivers are going to drop some balls, but I think it's magnified again because of the fact that he was a 7th overall guy, and the fact that last year that was not really an issue. Vincent Jackson had more drops last year
Absolutely.
than Mike Evans did. So, and he's the only legitimate threat. And I'm not knocking
That's not-
Dante and Adam, but a big time target guy. I think it's more magnified when he does drop the ball. And one of those drops was an ugly drop. A couple of them, it wasn't the best throw in the world. And really, that's why and again, let's talk about this real quick, Derek. Going back to Jameis, and again, everybody jokes about me being a hack and a biased guy and all this stuff. Listen, Jameis doesn't play for Florida State anymore.
No.
Right? The rah-rah is over. Now it's time. How do you perform for this football team? And I asked Dirk about this today. Jameis was off, and Dirk admitted he was off. He was hesitant at times throwing the ball. He was late with some of his throws, and the 2 interceptions that he had were not good throws. And that's what Dirk said. When we're on that part of the field, and it's just receiver, quarterback, 100% of the time you have to make those throws. You can't throw high. You can't throw high and behind receivers. You just can't do it. It wasn't like he was throwing into tight windows on either one of those particular throws.
No.
And again, end of the day, they win. Fumble, what fumble? Jameis has no recollection of the fumble. And at the end of the day, it doesn't even count because it was a penalty. So the play, is vanishes in midair. But he's got to, he can't go to Philadelphia. He's got to be better than he was last week if they're going to beat the Eagles. Is what I'm trying to say. I thought it was a C game at best, but again, ultimately they won the football game, and that's what matters. And look, I mean, the pregame dance, I give him an A+ on that. That was amazing. the throw the helmet up, spin around, and catch that.
So let's talk a little bit more about the defense. So we'll talk more about the offense, and I appreciate what Cutter's saying. What Cutter's doing, I think anyway, is he's taking his best player, and make no mistake about it, his best player is Jameis Winston, and he's putting all of the onus on him. The throw to, and it was Cam Brate, right? The first one. It wasn't.
Yeah, it was Brandon Myers.
It was Brandon Myers.
Yeah.
What did Cam Brate do to get out of the rotation? Because that's odd to see Brandon Myers get that much burn. But regardless,
Cam ended up with 2 catches, but I don't know if Dallas kind of took him away when he was out on the route a little bit more. I don't know. Maybe they used because the fact that Brandon blocks more. You know what I mean?
Sure.
If you slip him out, maybe it's not drawing the attention. I don't really know what the game plan was, but here's the deal. The tight end position, and I know you want to talk about offense later, but
that's fine. We can keep going.
Getting Austin Seferian-Jenkins back on this football team, I think, is so crucial, for this offense, and more importantly for Jameis Winston, who, had a good relationship with him during training camp and OTAs and going back to the mini camps and things like that, particularly down in the red zone. And this team struggles in the red zone right now. And I think having Austin Seferian-Jenkins, if he doesn't catch the touchdown, it at least takes coverage away from some of the other guys who I think will be able to get open.
And there's the $1 million point right there. It does. It takes coverage away. They can't just know that you're going to go to Mike Evans. Now,
Right.
I think a lot of the red zone, and I'm a huge Cutter guy, Cutter in the red zone has been terrible. The naked boot, or it was naked boot, was reminiscent, and you'll remember this, Mark, because you're an old Bucs fan.
Mm-hmm.
Doug Williams ran that play more times than I can remember.
Absolutely.
My dad loved it. When we had athletic quarterbacks before athletic quarterbacks were a real thing, and when they called that play, I get all sentimental because I thought about my dad watching
Sure.
the game. It was absolutely beautiful.
Yep.
Generally speaking, our red zone play calling has been very bad. It's been very predictable. It hasn't taken advantages of our strengths. And I think it's a little bit of scared play calling. He doesn't want to go to the post for some reason. Right? He's afraid to throw it in the middle, whether it's an accuracy concern or whatever. It doesn't matter. But let's transition briefly over to the defense, because the defense has been the bane of our existence. Front four can't get any pressure. Linebackers aren't covering properly. What happened to Levante David? Hey, Quan Alexander's playing good football. Our cornerbacks suck. Secondary is all busted up. This week they shut down Dez Bryant. They shut down a very good running game against an incredibly good offensive line without the guys who normally can set edges, right? We had guys playing solid football. Linebackers all of a sudden knew where they were supposed to be. Not perfect, mind you, not perfect. Levante David read a book on tackling in the off week, right? So he all of a sudden remembered that you can wrap and bring people down to the ground, which was some of the things in his contract, I suspect, stipulated he should do that.
Yes.
But more important than any of those things, they played with emotion. They played with fire. They rallied to the football, right? It wasn't like our guys have been out there dragging ass. I'm not trying to say that, but this felt different in the stands.
Well, and you know what it felt like to me, Derek? It felt like 11 guys feeling comfortable in what they were doing and not thinking a little bit. We all talk about playing on instinct, and that's maybe a little bit, we talk about that maybe a little bit too much. But in this situation, I really believe this defense played more on instinct and didn't think so much. And it should, because Quan Alexander should be better against the Cowboys than he was against the Titans. And Levante David should be more comfortable playing next to Quan. Bradley McDougall, going into his second year, should be better than he was. My wife is watching right now. She says, I look bored or tired.
He's both of them.
Yeah.
He's talking to me. How excited can he be?
I'll try and perk up a little bit, dear. But I am tired. But I don't even remember what I was saying. Oh, again, to me, it looked like this team played with, without thinking so much, played more on instinct, and certainly that's going to be key. Let's think about this, Derek. Let's think about this defense. Let's think about them rolling Howard Jones out. Let's think about George Johnson, who hasn't played well, with a calf
played
injury.
well is not the word, and I am butthurt about that because George Johnson plays football well, and he's been garbage since we signed him. He's like that trash car you bought. It looks so shiny, and then you got it home and it doesn't start.
At times, Henry Melton was playing the left defensive end spot. Will Golston was playing the right defensive end spot. I mean, guys completely out of position, right? Not the guys. Two cornerbacks that weren't starters when the season started. A nickel cornerback, which was a starter at cornerback, playing a different position. And really, I don't think enough has been made of and I know it was Matt Castle, but Matt Castle and that offense have put up yards against other teams this year.
Absolutely.
I mean, the fact that they play, this was very reminiscent, and I'm not comparing them to the old Buccaneers defense, but it was very reminiscent of that style of defense. And it started with stopping the run, number one. DeMarco Murray's a good running back, and you're not kidding. That's a very, very good offensive line. But Matt Castle had time to throw the ball, and there just weren't guys open. Linebackers were getting better depth. You're going to get some completions when you play zone, particularly to the tight end. Jason Witten, I think, had 4 catches. He was on my fantasy team. That's why I noticed that. But but he didn't help me a whole lot. But that's a good thing for this Buccaneer defense. I thought, for whatever reason, they just seemed to play like they knew what they were doing, and they weren't playing apprehensive, maybe is the right word, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I agree. And what's funny is when you look at when we do play zone, right? People think that only man is a defense of inches, right? Inches is probably an overstatement because I'm really talking about probably 36 inches. It's probably a yard, right? But zone can arguably be even more predicated on that level of specificity. We've got to get your depth, because if you get to depth, the quarterback's throw is so much more difficult.
Sure.
Right? If you're too shallow, the quarterback's throw is simple. And all year long, we've been beating this drum. We don't know how to stop a slant. We don't know how to stop a slant. Because apparently we just decided we weren't going to. It's not we don't know how, But if you're going to play 7 yards off the ball with no rolled coverage underneath, guess what? It's open.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So all of a sudden, we start pressing. We start taking an inside shade position and saying, you're not going to take us tonight.
Right.
Sorry. If you want to throw over us, good luck.
And Lovey's been listen, and I've been as critical of Lovey as anybody, but at some point it goes back on the football players. People scream about scheme, and you can still question if the scheme is good enough to win a Super Bowl down the road. But it can be much better than it was against Atlanta, against the Redskins in the second half, against Carolina, against Marcus Mariota in that first game. It can be much better than it was. And at some point, the players have to do what they're told. I give Lovey a lot of credit. He never throws a player under the bus. He cuts them. He benches them. But publicly, he doesn't really hammer these guys. He takes the blame for the deficiencies, and so does Leslie. And you can tell during Leslie's press conference, there's things that he wants to say at times, and he kind of bites his tongue a little bit because he'll pause and he'll think, how do I say this without really bashing my guy? But you can tell there were times he wanted to bash Tim Jennings and some of the other guys in the secondary, Jonathan Banks or whoever it might have been, and they didn't. But the players, for whatever reason, I believe, I don't know that the scheme changed a whole lot if you look at that game versus a game 3 weeks ago. I don't know how different, and I haven't broken it up per se as far as what they played as far as man and zone and so on and so forth. But the effectiveness of what happened obviously changed, and that eventually I think has to fall on the players, and I think they've stepped up to that. But again, look, this is the test. This week is the test. Is this team trending up? Or is it a stagnant team that's going to kind of hang around until they get some more talent, which they still need more talent. I think everyone would agree with that. But, if they can go to Philadelphia in a hostile environment, win on the road, finally get those back-to-back wins for the first time since 2013, I guess it was. Was that, 2012?
12.
Yeah, 12. That's amazing. So if they're able to do that, I'm going to feel a heck of a lot better about this football team.
Well, and I think fans will too. I think one of the things you've had is fan apathy driven by persistent I can't even say mediocrity because we haven't even been as good as mediocre, right? Persistent crap, right? So there's this disbelief. And what's funny is even in this game, there was this hope that we didn't screw it up after we scored, right?
Yeah.
We go get the touchdown, and then we kick off. We get the bonehead penalty,
Right.
which, by the way, has Mike Jenkins packed his stuff yet?
No,
right?
he was still there today.
Okay, and I say that sort of tongue-in-cheek because one of the things fans have gotten really, really excited about is the idea of someone screwing up and then, you know what you should do? You should cut him. Because apparently we should bring in a 34-man roster to the NFL. Because I don't know if you know it or not, but there's a fixed number of these cats around. You don't just go find Akeem Spence's laying around.
True.
Right? I know it looks like fat guys are a dime a dozen, but not fat guys that are as strong as him
Right.
and as fast as him. So you can be mad about what he does, and I mentioned this somewhere. It was on one of the chat boards. Well, you should bench him. Okay, if his contract's based on snap count, maybe, because there's a financial burden. But otherwise, if you bench him and he's pissed and you're pissed, what are you doing?
Right.
You're just putting a less talented cat out there.
Sure.
But at the same time, if you've got guys that are hurting your team, and I know a lot of folks want to jump on Donovan Smith, and during the game, I wanted to jump on Donovan Smith. 3 false starts makes me want to cry. But he's faced some pretty damn good edge rushers and not given up a sack.
Again, you don't hear his name except when a penalty's called, right? Or if he gives up a sack, and he hasn't given up a whole lot of those. So, yes, as I'm making my most disappointing list or my most impressive list or whatever I'm in charge of that particular week, Donovan Smith, 3 false starts, you want to scream, pull your hair out, because that is a mental error. Those should never happen. If you're a Florida State fan like me, the Florida State offensive line has been terrible this year with false starts, and there's nothing more frustrating because this guy's just not concentrating and taking care of things from the mental standpoint. But at the end of the day, and you look at the stat sheet, and Greg Hardy has 1 tackle against a rookie who some people thought the Buccaneers maybe picked a little high too. His big knock was his footwork not being very good, a little slow, a little stuck in the mud, and we've seen that from time to time. But overall, I mean, this offensive line, what they've been able to do, and again, Dirk joked with us last week about this, it wasn't today, it had to have been last week. He said, you guys all thought this offensive line was going to be terrible. We thought it was going to be okay. And he's right from a fan's perspective. We do the chat every week on Friday on pewterreport.com. And really all through the offseason, the big thing was the offensive line, and, of course, the defensive line as well. But mainly the biggest concern for most fans, I think, was the play of the offensive line. But as you said and I've said, having a legitimate offensive coordinator helps that offensive line. And
Yeah.
George Warhop is not as bad as people assumed. We were surprised.
No, despite
George
an
Warhop had
entire
a job.
despite a body of work last year of absolute crap.
Right.
right, that totally did not deserve another go. He has managed to, either by hook or by crook or because Cutter makes him better or whatever, this offensive line looks solid. But more exciting than that is, by necessity, it's developed depth.
Yeah.
Right? And we sat here and yelled at each other about Logan Mankins when he went out, and I was like, no way he should go back in there. He came back in. He's played better football since he's come back than he ever played before. EDS came in on the right guard position, plays better there.
Sure.
Good God, just keep him away from center. Joe Hawley needs to reproduce rapidly because we need more Joe Hawley beards out there.
Yes.
And you know, when okay, let's talk a little about injuries, because you know these sort of really important media type stuff. When are we getting some of these guys back? When do we see Ali Marpet back? When do we see ASJ back? You know, when do we see VJack back? I hear VJack's gonna be another 2-3 weeks, man.
He could be. I mean, he didn't practice today. He was really him and Ali were the only ones, I believe, that weren't able to go at all today. Everyone else was able to practice a little bit, if I'm remembering correctly. I was out there watching, but
dude, it was like 4 hours ago. How'd you already forget?
Because I'm 45. But Jackson, you know, the thing about Vincent, and we really don't know what the injury is. It was a knee injury. I mean, he's pulling a
lower leg,
a John Cooper, you know, Stanley Cup final type position here. And I wrote this on our message boards today. I think that I see why Lovey is very evasive when it comes to answering specifics about injuries, but really I think he hurts his guys from a personal standpoint, particularly a guy like Austin Seferian-Jenkins, because again, if he says, "Hey, this guy has a grade 2 shoulder sprain or a AC joint sprain," I think fans can understand that a little bit more as far as coming back. But when they see him out there practicing a little bit, and we report that, you know, he was on the practice field, but yet he doesn't dress again, it's very frustrating for fans. And I think, you know, Lovey, not on purpose, but he certainly hurts his guys to a degree. And I wrote it on the message boards today, too. That's one thing we can say. Greg Schiano was pretty open about injuries. Now, you know, he wasn't going to get into major specifics, but on Monday, he would come in with an injury report. We knew more about what the injury was, in other words, as opposed to the way Lovey does things. But Lovey's more old school when it comes to that, and that's the way he feels that he should do it. But I don't know. I mean, your guess is as good as mine, because we just aren't told anything about injuries. And I'll say this, even through sources, I can get a lot of good information. I got good information on the draft. I got good information on you know, who was going to start here and start there before the season started. I get good information on who's going to be brought up from the practice squad, and somebody may be getting cut tomorrow. But I'm not saying somebody's getting cut tomorrow. I'm just
well, look at you breaking some news.
No, that's not true.
Are you breaking news, Mark?
No one's being cut tomorrow.
Okay,
but
just a second.
DJ Swearinger will be cut. Oh wait, that already happened. But what I'm saying is, injuries, man, I get zero, nothing, and really. Very few reporters do. If they do break injury information, it usually obviously goes to the big guys, the Schefters and the Jay Glazers, for whatever reason. But from a local standpoint, breaking injury news is very difficult. And I don't know. I don't know when Vincent's going to be back. I would not count on him back this week because he didn't practice today. You know, Marpet is a tough guy. He wants to play. He hasn't missed a game. I think he told us staying in the locker room since his senior year in high school when he was on the basketball team was the last game he's missed. So he's one of those old school guys like Logan Mankins, who played half a year with a torn ACL when he was with the Patriots. Ali's in that mold. All those guys in the offensive line want to play. They don't ever want to come off the field. So Ali must be pretty hurt for him to miss the rest of that game a couple weeks ago and then to miss the game this week. But if he can play, he'll certainly try and be out there. But as you mentioned, by necessity, this team has developed depth, and we asked Dirk about that too. And this is the most deep offensive line he's been a part of, and that goes back to his days in Jacksonville. And it's amazing, you know, Kevin Pamphil's the first guy off the bench,
absolutely.
Right? You know what I mean? DeMar Dotson, here's a guy who was the best offensive lineman last year who can't get back on the field right now after they drug somebody off of the street, you know, in Cherilus there late in the preseason. So, you know, and I don't know if DeMar gets back on the field this year, to be honest with you. And why should he if things continue to go well? If Cherilus is playing good, and he's not playing great by any stretch, he's probably not grading out extremely high compared to some of the other guys, but he's part of a 5-man unit that has been successful over the last few weeks, and I'm a big continuity
guy. If it
guy.
ain't broke, don't fix it.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that.
Now, we have a couple things I want to do real quick. First, there was a question for you, Mark, from Jason Fiesman. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. If any Bucks, any hint that Hardy Nixon Jr. might be on the target list for the Bucks. I know you're not a draft guy, but obviously with the Hardy Nickerson ties, there's always an emotional play there, and I want to make sure that I want to thank the guys in the chat room with this new setup. We've got YouTube and Ustream going. Looks like everyone's made their way over here into the new chat room. Josh Wobbles in the chat room is doing the tech stuff and doing a great job. We're gonna try and keep making this better, but hopefully, this is gonna continue to be a better experience. But Mark, do you have any tips on that?
No, I don't have any idea on that. And I'm glad that he mentioned that because I wasn't even thinking draft yet, but that's certainly something to look into. I don't even know if Junior is projected to be drafted. I will say this, if he's not, certainly wouldn't he be a priority free agent kind of a guy? You know what I mean? I certainly think they would give him a shot here just because of the fact that his father does coach the linebackers here. But I mean, if they're not going to draft the guy just because he's Hardy's son, if they don't feel he's worthy of the position where he ends up getting drafted, if that makes any sense. And I was a little critical of Jason Light and his staff of not bringing in – they had an opportunity to bring in a couple Florida State guys, towards the middle end of the draft, and they didn't do that. To me, I was thinking, as far as, Jameis and having somebody he's comfortable with and chemistry and those things. And rightfully so. I think the Buccaneers did a good job. I mean, you can take a look at Kalen Clay, who just got signed by the Ravens yesterday, or maybe it was earlier today, but in the last 24 hours or so. And Joey Iosefa, which was just a throwaway pick there. But I think everyone else is contributed. Well, Kenny Bell had the injury. I will say this, talking to somebody off the record, can I say it? I don't understand how this works. If it's off the record, I just can't name the person, or can I just not say it at all?
You should ask a real journalist how that works. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not a real journalist. But I will say this. The organization is disappointed. They would have liked to have seen what Kenny Bell could have done. And I really believe that they feel Kenny Bell would certainly have moved into that spot of Lewis Murphy without question over Adam Humphries, Rennell Hall, whoever else they've tried out this year, Dante Dye, and those guys.
Well, we'll see how that works. The other thing I want to mention right now, and then I want to talk about what you just mentioned with regards to Jason Light. We actually have from Elder Ford to Tampa 8 VIP tickets to the car show this weekend. And I don't know how to give them away. So you guys in the chat room, come up with a really creative way to give these tickets away, because we could do trivia, we could do random draw, we could do whatever. You're going to have to be here local.
I've got an idea. You and I do strip poker.
That sounds terrible.
And then we'll win the tickets.
That sounds absolutely – all of those things sound terrible.
Can we just take our shirts off?
You can take your shirt off whenever you want to.
In all seriousness, before the end of the year – okay, let's say this. If the Bucks go 8-8, the first off-season podcast, we're going to go topless. Deal?
Why would anyone want that? We want viewers. We should have girls in here going topless because I'm a sexist pig, apparently.
Yeah, well.
But we have like 3 female listeners, right? And so anyway.
You telling me Spent would not want to see you and I shirtless?
Dude, Spent could see that after a tailgate win if she tried, because, I mean, we're also ecstatic about it. But all kidding aside, 8 VIP tickets to the car show. Come up with some great – well, look at these guys are begging us not to take our shirts off. Fuck you guys. Hit us up. Let us know what's going on here. Some ideas. Before the end of the show, come up with a way. You have to pick them up in Tampa Thursday or Saturday, which is the first day of the show, I believe. But they are VIP tickets, and it should be a great time. Big thanks to Terrell and Jeff and the crew over there at Elder Ford at Tampa. We'll give those guys out today. Hopefully come up with some great ideas. Otherwise, we'll just randomly draw some people from Tampa and give them to you, because it should be a good time. Now, with regards to the offensive line, DeMar Dotson, there was a lot of scuttle because people like all the soap opera drama, which just absolutely makes me want to throw up about football. Why is DeMar starting? Well, Lovey told him he could start. Now he's not starting, blah, blah, blah. No one tells us about injuries. Like, we have some sort of God-given right to know all the details. Listen, as a fan of this team, the thing we want is for them to what? Win. Anything they can do within the rules and within an ethical construct that we're okay with to get better and win, we should be all about. So if Lovey keeping his mouth shut about injuries stops the team that we're playing from knowing whether ASJ is going to play, which makes them change the way they prepare for the game, that's a win. Right, so I'd like all fans to just stop thinking you have some sort of a right via some sort of an amendment to the Constitution that I'm not aware of to know everyone's medical history. And by the way, until you want to go up and talk to ASJ and tell him he's soft, shut the fuck up telling this guy he's soft. Have you seen this man?
Right.
Do you have a half a clue, an iota of what these guys have to do to play this game? And I know it's not you guys in the chat room, because God forbid any of you would say this.
Actually, some of them. I'm looking at the list here.
But if you think this guy's soft, I can go help you meet him. I know his girlfriend. We can go talk to him at a dinner party one night, and you can take your little bitch ass up to him and tell him he's soft and see how that works out. These guys do more in practice than most of you will ever do physically in your lives, right? So if he can't defend himself, that's his whole career, guys. He goes out there and separates that shoulder further, and he's done. Guess what? He has to feed his family. So back off of guys calling him soft. It's dumb.
And talking to somebody last week about that, and Scott wrote about it in his Fab Five, and we put up another little article today about the fact that it's a legitimate injury, and Scott consulted with an orthopedic guy, and talked about the shoulder itself, and this person said, and the other person too that I spoke with, that I can't say who they are, but what they said is with a shoulder injury, depending on the type of injury it is, it can be more tricky than a knee, okay? Because, again, if you're a tight end and you have to inline block, I mean, you're essentially bench pressing or breast pinching.
6 in one, 7 in the other.
A 300-pound guy, right? Over and over and over. And it's an impact punch, right? I mean, that's the way they teach you. Get your hands out front, impact, drive. So that's wear and tear on that shoulder. Obviously, range of motion, going up over your head, rotating that shoulder, that joint, those kind of things. It's more difficult to get to heal sometimes than, say, an MCL type sprain, which may be a 4 to 6 week type deal. This injury could be anywhere from a 6-week injury to a 12-week injury. Again, we don't know the specifics of it, but I like Austin a lot. And it bothers me when people scream, and I understand the fans' perspective because they want to see the most weapons on the field as they can. So I can understand them being frustrated with him not being on the football field, but Austin can't just say to the coaches, "Screw you, I'm playing." I mean, number one, he has to be released by the medical staff. Then the coaches have to determine, okay, do we believe the medical staff enough, or do we want to take that chance? Because as I also put on our message boards today to somebody, coming back 1 week too soon from a shoulder injury could mean the rest of the season. Now, granted, he may end up missing 10 games, but if he plays in 6, that's better than the 1.5 that he played in. You know what I'm saying? Would you rather have the guy for the last 4 or 5 games than not have him at all? Obviously, Jameis Winston will tell you what he thinks. Again, it's a gamble coming back from that injury a little bit too soon. But I understand the fans' frustration with that. Listen, I had him on my fantasy team this year. I was as frustrated as anybody. He told me before the first game, he said, that was the best pick I made. And you know what? After week 1, I was in complete agreement with that. Unfortunately, I've had to waive him off of my fantasy football team and pick up Jason Witten.
It's funny. Calico Jack in the chat room just brought up a good point about Simeon Rice, one of the most physically fit players I've ever seen. This guy was a chiseled athlete. He hurt his shoulder, and the best pass rusher of my generation was done. Mm-hmm. He went to play in the UFL and couldn't get any pressure. He was done.
Yep.
So at any rate, and I know that Jason is saying, well, people wouldn't care if Lovey wasn't so vague. And I go back to the point, guys, you want him vague. I want the defense in Philadelphia to be afraid that we have to deal with 6'7" ASJ running down the middle of the field, catching everything in sight. Not worried about Brandon Myers or Cameron Brate, because guess what? They don't worry about those guys. No offense to either one of them. I think they
do worry about Luke Stalker.
Everyone worries about Luke Stalker, at least anyone who he's going to hit.
I still like Luke Stalker better than Luke Bryan, always, for the rest of my life.
Who doesn't? That's an easy choice.
Thank you.
That's an easy choice.
That's Spent, though. I'm sure she may not agree.
I don't know if it's a PDQ cup. That's a very, very good question, I think. Anyway, let's
let me say something to Spent real quick,
sure.
Just on a personal note, because that's what this show's about, my personal things.
Absolutely.
Spent,
Have you talked about Memphis
I just want
yet?
you to know, not yet. Okay. That's Mobile, by the way. But,
whatever, Memphis, Mobile.
When we are in Mobile this year, I'll pick up something for Spent. But what I was going to say is her favorite restaurant. I don't know if I can say it on the air, but anyway, they're catering our media luncheon next week. So. She'll be very good. And I will not be getting one of those Cafe Con Lucci or...
You talking about La Teresita?
No, the other one. Bricado's.
Oh, Bricado's. Yeah, that's
Bricado's
right.
is catering our lunch. So make sure to say hi to Mike next time she's in there.
I can tell you guys are real meaty because you got catered lunch.
Well, we're paying for it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. You guys pay for things?
Shut up.
All right, let's talk. You guys drop your skulls and swords in the chat room right now. I already told you my skull is Mike Evans. And listen, here's the thing. I think the world of Mike Evans. Mike Evans is one of those guys that I look at and I think this guy could be a really special player in this league. And it's not that he has to do something amazing. He doesn't have to transcend something. He doesn't have to all of a sudden learn something new. He doesn't have to do something that's alien. He just has to do the thing he already does well more often. And if you look at the kind of games he would have had he caught even half of the drops, if you only assume half of the drops were legitimate catches.
He's over 250 2 weeks ago.
It's crazy.
Dirk Cutter said that. He said this is a 250-yard game if he catches all those balls against the Giants.
It's absolutely crazy what this guy can do. And Jameis continues to get more comfortable. I wish Jameis.
And wait, let's go back to this.
But yet and still, as the Reverend Jesse Jackson would say.
And he's doing it, and every team knows he's the guy. That's the crazy thing. The guy could have had 250 yards against the Giants, knowing that that's who Jameis Winston was going to throw the ball to 9 out of 10 times.
They weren't rolling coverage to Adam Humphries?
No.
Oh, okay. By the way, we're not picking on Adam Humphries. Adam Humphries, you know what he does when he's throwing the ball?
Mr. Automatic. He
first catches
down,
it.
And he gets first down. 6 out of 7 of his last receptions have been for first downs.
We had a guy like that before, an old graybeard. Some of you may remember Ike Hilliard.
Oh, boy. I still remember him getting knocked out at Houston on that. I think it was a punt return, maybe it was a catch. And he was knocked out before he dropped the ball. The guy was out. I remember him just falling to the turf. I thought he was dead. I thought he had been shot.
That's not good. That's not good. All right, you guys are gonna drop your skulls and swords in here. I told you my skull is Mike Evans. My sword from that game. You know what's funny is the obvious choice for me is the emotional choice. And I want to make sure we have a conversation about this, and you'll probably like the choice because it's your boy. I liked Josh Freeman. You guys know that. Not only did I like him as a human being because I knew him personally, but I liked what he could have been, and it's sad that it didn't turn out that way. I like Jeff Garcia. I think Jeff Garcia was a good journeyman quarterback. He was functional. He got things done. I haven't been excited about a quarterback here in my life. Like, I remember being excited about Doug Williams when I was a kid. I didn't know anything about the game. He threw the ball really hard.
Yes.
Which was cool. What I see in Jameis, though, is I see that thing that Raheem Morris quoted about Josh Freeman, which is when you have a chance to get a franchise quarterback, you go get him. And at number one, guess what we got? And Kurt, Buckshot in the chat room has been banging the Winston drum forever, like many of you guys have been. And he put a quote up the other day, like, some of us saw it before because he had the number 5 Winston jersey. He was on it early. Absolutely. I am a believer. I am an unabashed believer in Jameis Winston. Do I think Sterling Moore could have been the player of the game? Yeah, because Des Bryant, where were you? Guess what? You got shut down by a guy I used to play with. But I think when you look at what this kid does, he wills them to victory. Does it suck he fumbled when he did the crazy John Elway thing? Yes.
Right.
But he did the crazy John Elway thing.
And we know quarterbacks that have played for this football team that we won't mention who would, number one, would have not have done that. Number two, the week before against the Giants, would step out of bounds at the 2-yard line instead of heading for the pylon. I mean, the guy, say what you want about character and these kind of things. You can't question the kid's love for the game of football and his will to win. He wants to win. And that was a negative some people saw with Jameis during the pre-draft situation, was him arguing with Jimbo Fisher and them going back and forth and him pushing the official out of the way in that one game last year. Again, he's an emotional guy who wants to win and play football and doesn't let a whole lot of things get in the way of that, if anything. And, I'm with you again. Listen, I try and take the fan hat off, and I believe I did the day that he was drafted, and I've been critical when he's played crappy, and I've given him praise. But there is something about the guy that people want to follow the guy. And I think I told you this after I went up to the FSU Pro Day. That was my first opportunity to meet Jameis Winston and be around him personally. I mean, I'd been at games and saw him play, but as far as being around him, and there just was that charisma that people talked about, which is really kind of amazing when you're talking about, a kid at that point in May, and it was in March 31st, who had literally just turned 21 a couple weeks before. My 15-year-old son sitting over there. Look over there at him. All right. Now, imagine him in just 6 short years being the number 1 draft pick, the face of a franchise, deciphering NFL defenses. Dude, I'm just happy when he gets on the bus on time every morning, right? I'm just happy when he remembers to bring his homework home. Jameis Winston is literally just 6 years older than this kid sitting over in the corner right now, who's not even listening to us, who's on his phone with his headphones in right now, because that's life to him right now. You understand? And when you look at it, people want Jameis to be 30 years old and play like a 30-year-old guy. I think it's kind of impressive what he's doing as just a 21-year-old kid at this point.
I don't disagree. And your skulls and swords as they come in, we'll talk about it and see who else could have been in there. But I think that it's pretty impressive what's going on. Let's shift our gears a little bit to Philadelphia.
Are you going to ask me about my skull and swords and?
Oh, you want to do it? You always cry about it when I ask you.
I really don't want to do it, but I would absolutely.
I don't want to do it, but ask me.
Well, I just want to be asked. I want to be cared about. I just want attention.
Oh God.
I want people to look at my face on this camera and be enthralled.
Everybody hurts.
I'm tired. Remember, my wife told me I look like crapola. All right, here's the deal. Sterling Moore, without question to me. Sterling, and secondly, I would maybe go with Bradley McDougald. Third, Levante David, as far as that goes. I thought both of those guys had outstanding games, and really, I love the familiarity that Sterling Moore had because he used to go against Dez in practice. That certainly helped him. But you know what? That should help him this week too. Again, as a member of the Cowboys, he's faced Chip Kelly's offense the last couple years.
Yep.
And so, I think that's also going to help. And he's playing with a chip on his shoulder. I think he feels like he should have been playing a lot earlier in the season. And you know what? Whatever it takes to motivate these guys to go out and ball like they've been doing, I'm fine with it. Imaginary chips on shoulders. The whole world hates me, thinks I'm too small. I wear weird earrings, which, by the way, he does. He's got those spike things in his ear I was looking at today. He's a little bit out there, but that's fine. Just keep playing football the way you're playing football, Sterling. We're happy with that. But he's my which one is it? Skull, crossbone, chicken bone? I can't remember.
Sword is good.
Sword is good.
Skull is bad.
He's a skull. I mean, a sword.
Yes, he's a sword.
Sterling is a sword.
Gotcha. So who's your skull?
Yeah, that's a tough one. It'd be easy to pile on Gerald, but I'm not going to.
Well, okay. Do who your skull is, then we won't talk Gerald. That's a good idea.
I'm probably going to go with in that game. Let me look at something real quick. I know you've got the game book here. I just want to verify and make sure that I'm going to pick the right guy. Oh, Henry Melton. Bad game. Henry Melton was rotating. I don't know if you saw that. He was in for quite a few snaps.
Yes, he was.
Him and Joe were rotating. He actually had worse stats and also committed a penalty, a really stupid infraction, which I thought was, yes, it could be, I don't know that I would have called it, but they did call it, so it counts. The penalty where he knocked the ball down, but then he shoves Castle and gets the 15-yard penalty. Again, when you've got a team backed up on the goal line.
You almost got a safety.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
It could have been an interception because the ball gets tipped. I mean, who knows what could have happened there? And you push the guy and you end up with a penalty. You just got to lay your hands off those guys. If it's close, just, again, easy for me to say sitting up in the press box eating.
No. Listen, that's
brisket that day.
And I appreciate that you're willing to take that, by the way. But in this particular case, as a fat guy, I would normally say, hey, physics, right? He landed and then hopped into him with his shoulder. He didn't hit him with his hand. Mm-hmm. He didn't brush his helmet. He didn't do any other bullshit things that they protect the quarterback from. He landed and then gave him a shoulder shuck to the jawbone. It was dumb. That's one of those Mike Singletary grab him by the face mask plays.
Right.
Because he did everything else right that play.
Yep, absolutely he did. But he didn't really show. I don't think, and again, looking at the stat sheet there, I don't think he showed up at all, which is, people want to dog on McCoy. But, Melton, who the Bucs are high on and feel that he's a pretty good pass rusher from the inside, and I think who's had a pretty good year when given the opportunity. Didn't have a great game on Sunday, so that would probably be my wishbone or
wishbone. You're so stupid.
Deviated septum. That's
so we got Buckshot with a sword for Ajabayamia. I can never pronounce his name. I will at some point. The other guy who's not more. A skull for Bobby Rainey. Skull to GMC for Tim Rogers. Another muff talking about Bobby Rainey. Now, listen, guys, I don't know if anyone else noticed this, and I only noticed it because someone else pointed it out. Were you down on the field at all that game?
No.
Because I know sometimes you go down before or whatever. The flags were completely perpendicular to the field. The wind was significant. Now, I don't know whether you could feel it down on the field, but it looked significant. And I wonder how much that had to do with the muff from Bobby Rainey. I also...
First of all, that guy, he knocked the piss out of that ball.
My man had big feet. I'm not going to lie. That punter was getting a piece of those balls.
Yes.
When he didn't, though, he shanked about 17 yards.
Yep.
Which was outstanding.
Perfect timing on that.
But Bobby Rainey in the punt game has been feast or famine. He's had some really big moments for us, but at the same time, you're back there with your heart in your throat going, maybe Tim Brown fair catching wasn't a bad idea. We also had a sword for Levante, who, like I said, came back. Skull for Melton. Shook says Ross Tucker loved the press box food. I don't know what the hell that means. What we got? Some more skulls.
I give the organization credit for the press box food. It's outstanding.
We got a sword for Holly, skull for Jenkins. I'm assuming that's because of the dumb play at the end of the game. A sword for Levante and a skull for Donovan Smith from Patches. Good stuff.
Patches, come on. The guy held Greg Hardy to 0 sacks and not even a quarterback hit and I think 1 tackle.
I do have a bit of a problem with false starts in general.
I agree.
they're one of those penalties that they really piss me off.
They should never happen. I'm with you. They should.
Our guys
you should never, ever, especially at home, right?
Yes.
It's one thing if you're in the Superdome.
Absolutely.
But when you're at home, they should never, ever happen. And to have 3 in one game is really mind-boggling. But
Yes.
again, you're not a Florida State fan. And I think Kurt
You're just
is
used
and a
to
couple
it.
of guys.
Yeah, Kurt definitely is.
We have seen it this year from Florida State players. And you ask my son, he literally has to leave the room sometimes because I turn into you guys when I'm watching Florida State football. I can't be that way watching the Buccaneers because it's my job. Used to be, can't anymore. But Saturday is my reprieve. I don't have to sit with a computer in my lap or in a press box somewhere. I can just watch the game and enjoy it and be a total a-hole fan. My wife comes in there and says, quit talking like that. You know, those kind of things. I'm one of those guys.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Now let's talk a little bit about Gerald McCoy before we move on to Philadelphia. Gerald has gotten a lot of crap. When the crap started, I went back and watched because people saying he can't even beat a single block anymore. He's terrible. We should move him in the offseason. He is overrated and he sucks and typical shit. So I went back and he was still getting double teamed. Yeah, every once in a while you get singles and sometimes you're supposed to beat him, right? Sometimes he didn't beat him. That's how it works.
He had 12 single teams though against the Giants, 12, and didn't win a single one of those.
Okay.
And, again, you're talking about a $98 million guy. So expectations, and Lovey and Leslie both said it too, when you're the captain and when expectations are that high, you can't be an average guy. And unfortunately, the last few weeks, he's played very average. Very average.
Okay. I'll go back and watch Dallas because I remember you putting out the 12 singles against the Giants, and I'll go back and watch the Giants film too.
And that didn't just come from me. That came from somewhere else.
Yeah, sure. I totally can believe it. It's conceptual, right? If he's getting singled, who are they doubling?
Well, who do you think? Howard Jones? You and I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back and look at this.
But there were some of those in Dallas, and you'll see that as well. And Gerald, I think, is freelancing a little bit. And again, I'm not just making this stuff up.
No, Gerald has always freelanced. Gerald has always freelanced in every defensive scheme.
And I don't understand trying to loop outside of a defensive end. It's point A to point B, right?
Unless you're running a text.
You're the closest. I understand that. But when you're not, that's the crazy thing, all right?
If you're not, then you fucked up.
And there are times, and you're going to see that. I don't know about Dallas as much as in that Giants game a little bit. And I think that part of that is coming from him pressing a little bit. I don't think he's hurt. All right?
You don't think his shoulder's hurt at all?
A little bit. It's not a major injury that is preventing him. He's just not playing well. The guy's got 4.5 sacks. He still leads the team. He had 2.5 sacks after the injury occurred, and none the last 4 games. So if it is a shoulder injury, I would assume that it would be more difficult for him to get sacks in the 2 games following the injury, right? You say he's up with 2.5. Again, I'm not knocking it. I just think he's in a slump, in a funk. Everything he's trying isn't working. He gets frustrated, tries to freelance a little bit, go a little rogue, and it's not working. It will come back around. He didn't forget how to play football. But I don't believe, and again, this is just me talking to you, and nobody's listening right now.
Nope.
No one is crying that this guy's going to need shoulder surgery or anything like that in the offseason. It's certainly not 100%. But again, when you're recording 1 tackle, 2 tackles, 1 tackle, and 1 tackle the last 4 games, and you're being paid $98 million. Now, I will say this: I asked Lovey specifically about Gerald today. And people can go and watch the press conference on Buccaneers.com and hear the full response. But I said, obviously a lot's been made of Gerald and his stat numbers the last few weeks not being where they need to be. Were you more pleased with what Gerald did against Dallas? And he said, absolutely. And he also reminded us that as a 3 technique, that's not a position where you're going to blow up the stat sheet, right? You're going to hope 2 sacks shows up. You're going to hope that 5 quarterback hurry shows up, maybe a tackle for loss. But it's not a 9 or 10 tackle position and a 2 sack consistent basis. And he also pointed this out, which I thought made a lot of sense and really stood up for Gerald in this, is that he said, you don't hold the Cowboys to 6 points if your 3 technique is not playing well. So there you go.
Yeah, and that's the interesting piece. If people aren't running to him when he freelances, if they're not finding that hole, and Steve White, when he's on, talks about all the time, in this defense particularly, in any one-gap defense, if you're not in your gap, the ball will find it typically,
right.
And that's not been the case.
Right.
So the job is getting done. Now, are we getting the push? And that's where the next evolution of what has to happen here, whether it's by manufacturing some extra time to go into press or whatever it happens to be. Those 4 cats that are on the defensive line have to generate rush. We ran, I don't know how many blitzes we ran this week. Chris may know. He's in the chat room. He may have counted the number of blitzes, but we know we ran the blitz with Quan. He got the sack. We can't have to manufacture pressure with our blitz. Alteron Werner tried to run some blitzes off the corner.
By the way, that was a beautifully designed blitz right there, okay? I do not like the Buccaneers showing their blitz pre-snap, linebackers in the A-gaps, standing there, pretending they're going to back out going, and then they just kind of half-ass, try and get through there. I love the fact that they brought Levante, and then Quan came kind of on a delay when they picked up Levante. That was terrific. Now, again, that works because the play call was for a deeper type pass. If that's a 3-yard quick out, then Quan doesn't even come close to that.
Sure.
So that chess match worked in that situation for Lovie Smith. But I like that idea when you do blitz to take those chances a little bit more with surprising. I will say this, over the last few years, I think the Buccaneers have been one of the worst blitzing teams as far as showing their hand way before they need to.
Well, and even when they didn't show their hand, the worst blitzing team, you could have stopped that right there.
Right.
Because one of the things you've got to do, blitzing is one of those things that's almost more science than or more art than science. There are guys that are really good at it. They can find their way through the shit and get to the ball. Rondé Barber was great at it. And they're trying to do it with Alteron Werner now.
And also could time the blitz perfectly.
Yes.
Rondé was terrific. He not only was he a guy who could wade through the crap, he could also time it just right.
Yeah.
That guy just had a knack for it, and some people do. The reason I say this is because I watched the Tiki and Rondé Football Life. I didn't see it when it came out last year. I saw it this weekend, and it was really good. But I forgot how good this guy was. With timing up those blitzes just right. And you know what? In that game against Philadelphia, when he took the one back 94 yards,
yes, sir,
he showed blitz, and all Buck fans kind of know this. And he had been coming. Remember, he got the strip fumble earlier in the game.
He dropped back,
and he showed the exact same thing to Donovan McNabb at that point, and totally just dropped back into coverage underneath, stepped in front of the ball, and I'm going to the Super Bowl, bitches, or whatever he said, something like that.
Yeah,
F the Pro Bowl.
It's the name point. Great times. And I think that they're trying to listen. I've been banging the Alteron Werner drum for a while. I don't have a problem to put him in nickel. I think he's got a nose for the ball. He seems to be a smart player. I think he could grow into a player like that. They tried to run him on those blitzes. He doesn't quite have that feel yet.
Right.
I don't think that it's going to be hard for him to get it. I think it's a really good experiment that they're running, and it may start to pay some dividends. We actually ran, I think, 2 safety blitzes, which you rarely see a Lovie Smith team do, or I haven't seen recently. And when you do that, you're taking some risks there.
Absolutely. Particularly with the way that the secondary. I mean, you're really counting on these guys to lock up their man and stick with them.
Right. All right, let's transition over to the Eagles briefly. I know I don't want to keep you here all night. I know you got to drive all the way back to Plant City, wherever you live.
I was going to say, when's halftime? Because I have to pee.
There's no halftime, and you can just handle it
right now.
If you want to, you're on camera. Do what you got to do, man. There's no FCC here.
Right.
Philadelphia Eagles, Chip Kelly. What do you want to tell the Bucs fans they can expect out of their Bucs team? What are you looking for? Who are you looking to really kind of splash? Those sorts of things. Let's talk briefly about the Eagles.
Well, offensively, I mean, obviously the Eagles are going to do what the Giants and the Cowboys have done. They're going to try and make Jameis Winston beat them. They're going to sell out to stop the run, and if they do that, then it's going to fall on Winston's shoulders, and we'll see. The thing I'm concerned about with is a little bit of accuracy issues with Jameis. It really falls back a lot on mechanics with some of those balls that sail. Again, something I asked Dirk about last week, and he admitted that, he's still got some accuracy issues. Not the kind of things you fix, though, in the middle of the season. When the crunch time comes, guys kind of revert back to what they've been doing their whole life, and so you're going to see some of that with Jameis. But when you're talking about the weather could be an issue up there, he's going to have to be a little bit more pinpoint with his accuracy. But the bottom line is, the Buccaneers are obviously going to try and run the football. They need to get that back going. I thought Doug played well. He had some tough, grinding yards that were crucial in that win, particularly even on that last drive, or in the fourth quarter anyway. When the Buccaneers had some opportunities. They're going to need him to continue to play like he's playing and do a little bit better. I think they can run against the Eagles. Again, sometimes they sell out. Sometimes they go all out to try and stop certain things, and that leaves some creases, I think, for Doug Martin in this offensive line to exploit a little bit. But Ali Marpet not being in there, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because I don't think people understand how crucial he's really been to this run game. When you look at Ali, He hasn't pretty. I don't know. I haven't counted up pressures, and I'm sure I can look on some website and find out how many pressures he's
Not
given up.
anymore.
But I mean, yeah,
Fuck you, Pro Football Focus.
Pass pro is the thing I guess most people would assume he needs to continue to work on and get better at. But his run blocking has been very good this year, and I think him not being. I liked what Evan Smith was able to do as far as not screwing up the continuity of that line. But he wasn't overly impressive with his run blocking, although there were some times I've seen some vines and things of him getting to the second level, which, again, he never did at center. And one of the things that Joe Hawley does excellent is getting to that second level, getting out in front on screen passes and things like that. You look at the guy, you wouldn't expect to be as mobile or as athletic as he is, but he's much more nimble on the feet than Evan Smith is. So, again, to sum up this long rambling thing I'm trying to say, obviously try and run the football, but it's going to come down, still to me, it's going to come down to Jameis Winston. If he can be accurate and the receivers can get open and Mike Evans can catch the ball, then they can have some success in certainly scoring some points against this Eagles team.
I think one of the tricks is everyone talks about the Eagles' pace, and there was a lot of discussion. Even on Chris's on Buck's Brief podcast, he had Luke Eastling. Luke Eastling was great on the show. They talked about the number of plays that Chip runs. Averages 80 plays, 80 offensive plays a game. The Bucks, I think Chris said, average 63 plays a game, which is closer to the league average. None of that really matters, right? They can only run enough plays to get in the end zone. Right. So all that this is really about is whether your defense can get set. Whatever base you choose to run. If you go base nickel against them with their personnel groupings or whatever, just get your guys to realize they don't have to play at that pace. They can help close this pace. Mm-hmm. Right? You tackle a guy, let him get back to the lineup. I get it. They're not huddling. Guess what? It's called no huddle.
Right.
This isn't fucking rocket science, guys. It's been done for a long... Hey, Jerry Glanville just called. He wants his offense back. Right? Not rocket science.
June Jones.
And at the end of the day, if they score a touchdown, you know what we have to do? We have to go try and score a touchdown.
Right. And again, as we mentioned earlier, there's going to be more plays run on the Buccaneers side too as well because of the pace that they do run. I mean, the Buccaneers are going to have probably an extra 2 possessions more than they normally have if you average out, through the first 9 games. You see what I'm saying? I think they're going to end up with a couple more possessions, which could, be 15, 16 more plays, and they could potentially be up there around that 75 to 80 play mark too. And again, look, this team can't score. I mean, that we haven't seen them, throw a lot of 80-yard passes, but Jameis has missed on some long balls. He's come up just a little bit off on a few long balls. If he can connect on some of those, then they may have to match him score for score. I think early, but I think Philadelphia is going to be able to move the football a little bit early. Well, I say that again. Then you got to throw in the whole Sanchez deal. And I know what you're saying about backup quarterbacks. The fact is, though, there's a reason the guy's the backup, right? And the guy has not got first-team reps all year. So he's not going to be on paper, he should not be as effective as the starter, which I think helps the Buccaneers. So, I've been saying, they're going to start fast. Maybe they don't because maybe Sanchez is terrible. Maybe he throws a couple picks in the first quarter.
Mark Sanchez, and I forgot who made this comment. It was one of the NFL.com guys. He is, in fact, he is now what he should have been. He's a backup quarterback. He can throw the ball accurately at times. He's going to make some stupid mistakes throughout the game. And what we have to do is not drop them, Quan. Yeah. Right? When they give you that opportunity to pop them in the mouth, you do that. Yeah. You take the ball, you get the extra possession. Now, there's a question in the chat room from Wobbles. Is it from Wobbles? No, it's from Revfish about why we don't do more no huddle. Jameis seems very comfortable when we go into a spread. There's some things on offense we're not doing a lot of, but it's hard to dick with what we're doing now because generally speaking, I think things are going well. I don't think you want to go throw a bunch of variables into it. I love it when Jameis gets a chance to move guys around. There's not a lot of pieces in the cupboard right now to move around.
Well, and I think part of that too is Rev, when you go back and let's take the last 2 games out of the equation, but do you really want to risk the opportunity of going 3 and out in a minute 20 with the way the defense was playing earlier in the year?
No.
I mean, that's the reason why they haven't done it.
Right, and the only time we've seen it is when they had to. Now Rick Hughes brings up something that I've been bitching about all year. Mark, we're going to ask you because you get the Florida State background. Why is it a kid with as strong an arm, a live arm like Jameis seems to have, consistently underthrows deep passes?
Kurt will tell you this. Florida State fans will tell you Jameis wasn't great with the deep ball. His first year, he had Kelvin Benjamin. You throw it up, let him go get it.
Let him go run under it.
Okay. And last year with Rashad, I can go back to the Oklahoma State game, the season opener, where he completed some long balls,
but a lot of those throws were underthrown balls. And Benjamin during Jameis's redshirt year, his redshirt first year, freshman year. But that's something I think that it's going to take time for him working with guys. Again, I don't think you fix that mid-season. But I mean, Florida State fans will tell you, he wasn't a Dan Marino, beautiful throw it 60 yards in the air and drop it, on a dime. I mean, it just wasn't what he excelled at. He excelled at what we've seen him excel at times. Those mid-range throws, okay, those deep square ends over the middle,
right?
Some skinny posts and things like that, working the tight end down the seam. Those are the things that he was really good at. And the out. And again, I jinxed this guy week 1, right? Because Jameis did not throw a pick 6 in college. Did not. What does he do? First pass in the NFL, throws a pick 6. Ends up throwing another one another one against the Carolina Panthers. So, but again, he's pretty good on that out pass too. And one thing, and you and I talked about this during training camp, when he missed on that out, it tended to be to the sideline as opposed to missing inside. That's where those pick sixes usually happen. So, but they haven't run a lot of those this
Hell no.
year.
Trying to throw that damn pass anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I was excited. I don't think it was a week before last. We ran and I don't remember the makeup of the play, but Dante Dye was streaking down the field, allegedly a fast guy, and Jameis overthrew him, and I was fine with that. I was totally okay with that. Let the ball rip. I would rather you do, and people are like, oh, well, back shoulder, they can come back and get the ball. Yeah, I get that. If you're Mike Evans, you can go get the ball.
5'9",
not Dante Dye.
Exactly. And Adam Humphries, no. I mean, yes, and there's been some balls to Mike Evans that he should have caught. I can go back to that Houston game where it was a deep ball, where it was a jump ball, a pass that Mike Evans excelled at last year and Vincent Jackson excelled at that he wasn't able to come down with. So I think Jameis is still trying to figure these guys out. On what their strength is and the best way to throw it to them. Again, you and I sat in the stands at training camp a few times this year, and we watched it. Jameis wasn't good really on the deep balls, and and he's really not good really at that at red zone fade. Everybody says, hey, throw that fade. Number one, I hate that play. I think it's the lowest percentage pass in the world. The one-on-one, throw it up in the corner, try and hit the back corner right before the pylon kind of pass. I'm not a fan of that. Jameis doesn't throw that particularly well. I think he tried that. I don't know if it was this game or I think it was the Giants game, and it was
but it was so bad. They did it to the near side of the field. It was a terrible time to do it.
I just hate that. To me, it's just a low percentage deal anyway.
When you have a 6'6" guy who can leap out of the gym, it's an option. It's a slant fade combo, and depending on where the corner is,
right, you
can set him up. That's a high percentage play. If that's not one of your set of, say, 10 plays in your red zone, you're an asshole. Not you, but I'm saying as an offensive coordinator.
Yes. I see what you're saying. But if a guy's not great at it, and he's not great at it, I would keep that in the back pocket. You know what I mean? Again, sure, if Mike is matched up with a 5'8" or a 5'9" cornerback, that's one thing. But cornerbacks, and I was talking to a guy today, and this is terrible, Earl Christie played for the Jets.
That's the guy's got the coffee place, right?
And also he was the guy who fumbled the ball in the Heidi game that the Raiders ended up winning, famously. But anyway, talking to Earl today, and he played defensive back. He says defensive backs are so athletic today that 4 or 5 inch difference is completely different than it was 5 years ago, or not 5 years ago, 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, or certainly 40 years ago when he played in the NFL.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because cornerbacks are usually such good athletes. A lot of times the second best athlete on your football team, they have explosive ups as far as getting up high, and he thinks a little bit is too much made of that in the NFL. In the college ranks, you can still see a dominant 6'4", 6'5" guy really belittle a 5'8" or 5'9" guy, but in the NFL, you don't see it nearly as much.
The thing that's frustrating about that is that combo, right? Whether it's Mike Evans or Vincent when he comes back or ASJ, you have to take advantage of your advantages, and some of them are going to be physical. If they're going to be up on the line jamming you, which they're going to do in the red zone anyway, it's not just about you getting off the jam, right? And when I've coached receivers, it's not just about getting off the jam. If they're going to jam you, guess what? You can throw them too. Inside of 5 yards, be physical. Don't be a bitch. Right? If they want to try and get into your tits, then get into theirs and throw them to the inside and go to the outside. It's an easy freaking play. And that's one thing. If Jameis isn't good at that's practice.
It's
practice.
So much timing is involved in it too. You know what I mean? You're counting on the receiver to get off of that cornerback. You're counting on that ball. That perfectly thrown ball. It's a touch pass in a sense. It's a timing pass. To me, I'm not a big fan of it.
I like it because I like the combination. I like it if you're not centered on the field and you've got a long side, you get him out there, you motion your slot guy out of the way, giving a ton of room, forcing the cornerback to declare, and then it's
I
shooting fish in the
am
barrel.
much more a fan of the Brad Johnson red zone back shoulder throw to me. You know, go towards that, come back to the ball to me. I mean, Brad was brilliant at that. We saw that in the Super Bowl.
True story. True story. All right, so let's talk Philadelphia predictive players. Who do you think is going to show up? Who's going to be the predictive MVP on offense? Who's the predictive MVP on defense?
I think
And if you
Mike-
guys have questions for Mark, you got him right here, guys. Many of you guys have never had the pleasure of meeting the Ginger Badass in person. He's kind of a legend. He's the editor-in-chief of PewterReport.com, the preeminent Buccaneers
I
periodical.
ran into Haley and Zeller today at the grocery store. Hi,
Oh,
if
did you
they're
know?
listening, yeah.
Well, that's good. You know, they coupon like crazy, so they're probably getting all sorts of great
Yeah, they had
pasta.
like 4 buggies and they spent $9.
That's how it does, right?
You know you're from Plant City when you call a shopping cart a
A
buggy.
buggy, yeah. And you have one at home.
Yes.
So predictive MVPs on offense and defense.
Mike Evans. I think Mike Evans is going to continue. I think, you know, we all trash the guy, and I know you made some valid points. That's your job to catch the ball in that Giants game. Still ended up with, 163 or 153, whatever it was. That's a damn good day for a lot of receivers, minus the 6 drops, okay? Number 2, but and he got better
That
last
doctor
week.
was a really good doctor. He saved 5 of those patients. Those other 4, fuck them.
Yeah, but those 5 that he saved,
They're really
I mean,
happy.
those were some sick people. I mean,
Jesus
they
Christ.
didn't come in with scratches. I mean, he had to do a face transplant on all of them. But I think Mike is going to continue to be better this week. So he's going to be my predictive MVP. I think they're going to have to throw the ball, and I think they're going to have some success doing it. On the defensive side, I'm just going to go with the hot hand. I'm going to go with Sterling again. Again, with that familiarity that he has with Philadelphia, with Chip Kelly, with some of these receivers. You know, I think, and he's just playing really well right now. He's kind of in a zone. I know that's an overused cliche, but the fact is he's just in a zone. What I love about the guy, and I think you would agree, and maybe I've already said this on the show.
The earrings?
That is beautiful, those spike earrings. But, you know, he's the one cornerback on this football team that challenges footballs in the air. And I love that. You know what I mean? Even that third down that the Cowboys could have extended that drive before the Bucs got the last one. Yeah, he didn't actually get his hand on that ball. But again, if that's Jonathan Banks, and I'm not ripping Banks, or if that's Tim Jennings, that's a completion because they're 4 yards off the guy. I mean, he's battling the guy. And if he gets beat, he gets beat. But he's challenging the football in the air. And that's what I love about Sterling Moore, and I think he continues that, and I think he's the MVP on the defensive side.
Nice selections. I'm going to go a little different on the offensive side. I'm going to go with the resurgence of Doug Martin, with or without Marpet. I expect the Bucs to try and leverage him because they're trying to every game, and that I like to see. Sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not. You got to let him try and get his yards, right? Whether it's on the ground or whether you include him in the screen game, which they seem to like Charles Sims in, which is fine. The fact that suddenly we can run a screen is just beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a terrific tool in your arsenal. But I think that
Again, sorry.
Yeah.
Going back, Dirk Cutter versus the last 3 offense coordinators this team has had, that helps his offensive line out.
all day.
That helps his offensive line
Dude.
and frustrates defenses and wears them out and drives them absolutely crazy to where on the next play, they're all going rogue and acting foolish.
What's funny is Greg Hardy dancing, getting booed by the crowd, talking shit, trying to get the defense fired up, gets great jump off the line. Now, I don't know if it was the play called before because there was a stoppage. I think it was a commercial stoppage, right? But after the stoppage, they run a screen right behind his arrogant ass, and all he can do is watch.
Yep.
And it was beautiful.
Yep.
That was football chess. I'm going to go with Doug Martin this week, and I'm on the defense. I'm going to go with also a hot hand. I'm going to go with Levante David. I think Levante's starting to feel it. I think he's going to have a great game. You've got great running backs out there who, when they get in space, can cause trouble. You're going to have to make your tackles, and this defense follows his lead. When he's tackling well, the defense is rallying well. I think that could bode very, very well for us. We didn't get to talk a little bit about the management of the cap, and I don't mean cap really, but DeMar Dotson not playing. These guys are assets, right? So how you play them actually does matter because he's got a contract situation as well. DeMar Dotson does.
Well, he's got another. The Bucs have him for another year.
Yeah, but still, there was all sorts of discussion in the offseason. And so if we're getting decent play from Chairless, great. Guess what? We got other guys who can play now, right? And that depth is going to help.
Because if Dotson goes in there and plays lights out, then all of a sudden he's knocking on Jason's door.
Absolutely. Count on it. And that's one of the things I like about what Jason's done is he's been able to accumulate some of these things. Now,
Wait, real quick. My wife texted and said, "Your REM singing has been the best part of the show by far."
well, thank
So,
you.
That tells you she's not a football fan.
No.
Because
and
we might as well be talking Russian right now.
well, we should all go to karaoke one night. We should have a What the Buck / Pewter Report karaoke night. We actually talked about doing
We won't
it.
show up.
Of course not. We actually talked about doing this as a charity thing, and you have to bid to make someone sing.
Oh my god.
They'd have a set of songs that they were acceptable, and then
Right.
you could pay to keep them on stage or pay to gong them. So you'd have like bidding going constantly, right? Which I thought would be a lot of fun. But
Do
at any
not
rate,
include me on that one.
oh, it'd be great. You'd love it. Keep drinking that soda, Mark. I was saying he had to use the restroom 30 minutes ago. Yeah, he is drinking soda. Good point, Rev Fish. What
Hey,
is your
Rev,
score?
by the way, I appreciate your emails, and I didn't get the questions in. Hopefully, you were able to get them in the chat room last Friday. Sorry about that. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
You're a failure. Rick Hughes says our defensive MVP will be Mark Sanchez.
Hopefully.
I have been looking for that game where the offense clicks, because I agree with you. There's going to be a game where all of a sudden we break out with over 30 points. And it's not going to be because of the defense getting pick sixes or whatever. It's going to be the offense just all of a sudden does the things this offense can do. The Mike Evans pass that almost gets in the end zone, we end up with a field goal, gets in the end zone.
Or the one that he draws the pass interference call on for 50 yards.
Yep.
He catches that ball, and he ends up
And he
scoring.
ends up, yeah, exactly. Those things are going to fall at some point. I have to believe it. Math tells me. And I think that maybe this is the game, because you know what? I want it to be, because I hate Philadelphia more than any team. I heard Fish talking about it, Chris, whatever you go by now. I don't know the hell you go by. You had a
Yeah,
pseudonym
it's
before.
too
Now
many
you're
names.
too cool to use real names. But
Yeah. He has Luke Easterling on instead of me. I get it.
well, he's got way more followers than you do.
True.
But at any rate, the what the hell? Oh, they were talking about who's the most hated rival, and Chris said, well, outside of the NFC South, I think Philadelphia is probably the one that most Bucs fans hate. Damn the NFC South. I don't hate a single team in the NFC South as much as I hate Philadelphia. I have no use for the Philadelphia Eagles. I never want to go to Philadelphia, and I'm fat, and I like the concept of Philly cheesesteak, but if me not eating Philly cheesesteaks would help hurt the Eagles,
Right.
I would stop eating them.
Right.
So I want us to win by 1,000 points. I want there to be tears. I want players' wives to divorce them. I want it to be horrible up there. And this week I'm picking a 34-17 win for the Bucs.
Wow. Nice.
What about you, Mark?
Well, I haven't thought about the score yet, but I haven't decided who
And
I
Philly's a
think's gonna
shithole. I don't care if you're from there or not.
win. Yeah, they talk really weird there. They say water for water.
Washington.
There you go. And Joe Flacco. Oh wait, that's Baltimore. All right, so
It's just
score.
numbers.
24-23. And I don't know who. Flip a coin. I don't have any
That's the
idea.
kind of quality predictions. You know, we leave this stuff to Vegas. I don't even know what the line is. I'm going to guess that the line is probably 7 going the Eagles' direction.
Right, probably.
I don't think the weather's going to come into it. I hope it's not, because it's just 40 degrees, and if that really affects you as a player,
45.
you're a big pussy.
And they're saying sunny, not rainy.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good.
But
Well,
stiff
thank God
winds.
it's not rainy, because if that's true, then we could
Mike
count on
Evans
50%
gloves.
drop rate
Yeah, it's
for
close.
Mike Evans.
Yeah, I don't want that to happen.
Listen, and I do want to restate, not that I think Mike Evans is listening right now or that he listens to the podcast later and
probably
cries. I love what Mike Evans can become. I really do. This guy's got a unique skill set. And
So you're not one of those Buccaneer fans who says he's the next Michael Clayton.
No, and by the way, Michael Clayton was a better receiver than most people give him credit for. I think most of Michael Clayton's problem was in his head. If you ever watched him in practice, and you did, this guy could do things in practice you wouldn't believe. The lights came on, and he started dropping the ball. It was mental. It was not physical. And Michael Clayton's a hell of a nice guy, by the way.
Absolutely, great guy.
But we've all had players like that if we've coached. We've known players who were practice warriors and then couldn't get it done when the lights came on.
T-shirt All-Americans, as my high school coach used
Yep.
to call me.
But we've also had the opposite. Daniel Lansana, at least historically, I don't go to practice because I'm not a real media person,
Right.
but in training camp, wasn't spectacular. Put him under the lights, all of a sudden, old boy finds plays.
Although this year he hasn't.
He
I mean,
hasn't
granted,
yet.
he's not on the field a whole lot. You got to remember last year he actually filled in for Mason at some,
Yep.
and he was kind of all over the field. And then Levante got hurt. So, but yeah, he's missing out on those plays. But again, I think a lot of that's predicated on the fact that the entire defense up until the last two games has been played really poorly.
Well, I think we're both looking for a resurgence from the Buccaneers. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Hopefully you enjoyed the new format. Like I said, we got the 8 VIP tickets. If you are Tampa area or Central Florida area, you can come over to Tampa Thursday or
We're gonna
Saturday.
do the, strip poker now.
Dude, I don't know why you want to see me naked that bad. Your wife is going to start asking questions, though, if you keep talking about it, and your son is getting creeped out.
Yeah, okay, that's a little weird. My son's in the
A
room. so
lot
I'll
of
take that
weirdness
back.
is happening right here.
I'm so glad he's not listening right now.
Me too, thank God.
He's probably playing Madden on his silly phone.
Eh,
By the way, PSA from Mark Hook. If you have a teenager, do not get him a cell phone unless you don't want to have any communication with him for about 5 years. Just wait. I mean, wait until the last possible moment. We all want to be the cool parents, right, and get our kids the newest Galaxy as you would prefer and the iPhone as I would prefer.
Sure.
So they're cool with their friends. It's garbage. It's ridiculous. It's totally destroying the society that we live in. So there's your word of advice. Do not get your kids a cell phone. And as my mom was a teacher, retired assistant principal, people used to say, but I need it for an emergency. And she makes a great point. What emergency? If your son falls and cracks his head open at school, we're going to call you. We're not just going to throw him in the nurse's station. We have phones that work. We will call you. If there's a lockdown at the school, guess what? We're going to call you. You'll be notified. There's not really any emergency that your kid having a cell phone at school makes a difference. Now, if they walk back and forth to school, that's one thing, ride a bike, blah, blah, blah. But she makes a good point. I'm just saying, I curse the day that I bought him a phone. I curse him when he's on the phone. He's not even listening right now. I want to break the phone across his head. Problem is, I have a 2-year contract with Sprint. The phone's very expensive, and so I can't do that.
I'm trying to figure out how to just take it back.
What?
Take it back.
Can you? Oh, no, that is the one thing, and as you'll find out, Derek, he's 15 now. Just, by the way, happy birthday. He turned 15 on Friday. Is if you want to get his attention, the phone, and anybody who has teenagers know this, I could make him probably, go do cartwheels all the way back to Bloomingdale Avenue right now if I threaten to take his phone away. So that is one advantage to having the cell phones is these kids are so tied to them, they don't want to lose them, and they'll do anything to keep them.
My one rule of parenting is find the thing they love the most and threaten to take it away at a regular interval.
Absolutely.
And you can certainly call me a bad parent for that, but that's what I do.
I know. You don't let your kids wear diapers.
I remind my children on a
regular.
regular basis all of the things that are here and all of the things that they hold
Thank you.
are mine.
I own every one of
They're
them.
mine.
The kid doesn't understand that concept. Are you going to pay me? I get that question all the time. Yes, I'm going to pay you with electricity from Tico. I'm going to pay you with food in the refrigerator. I'm going to pay you with a bed, a roof that doesn't leak. That's how you're getting paid. When you're 18, you can do whatever the hell you want.
And I'll tell you what, a previous generation, are you going to pay me? You wouldn't have got the pay me part out of your mouth. Are you going to whack?
We have turned into those old dudes that
I
talk
remember when I was a kid.
My dad, time out was the time I spent in the flower bed unconscious. Yeah. God,
Well,
we've turned into that. At least we haven't talked about the weather. Oh, wait, I've brought up the weather 4 times tonight.
You're an asshole.
Shit.
I want to thank Mark Cook from Pewter Report for coming in. I want to remind you guys we'll be at the Brown Boxer this weekend. Get on Facebook. If you're not on Facebook, we'll tweet it out as well. We'll be collecting toys. I'm sure you guys have your watch party as well at the Hard Rock.
I wasn't going to say it, but yes, we will be at 1
That's
o'clock.
fine. That's fine. The role we've played over time is to fill in gaps when they needed to be filled in. Right? Whether it's like when we started, we had no message boards. You guys had the red board. The captain's deck and Bucks chat were very healthy at the time. There's no reason for us to have it. Over time, we've done things because we thought that we needed to do them. Watch parties are another one of those things. You guys have started a good watch party. People are having a good time at the Hard Rock. Your sponsors are having fun.
It's not a what the buck watch party, that's for sure.
But
did they tell you about the new
different
Pewter
flavors.
Report tailgate we're starting? I'm just kidding.
Listen.
No. I don't even go to yours. I'm not definitely.
I know
not
it's too
gonna start one
far.
hour in.
It's too far for you to walk, you lazy bastard.
I told you, I looked it up on Google Maps one time, and it was just a little bit west of Winter Haven.
You're such an idiot. I want to thank you for coming out, Mark. Big shout out to Pewter Report for all the things that they do. Mark, Scott, the whole team.
I'll be on the Pewter panel tomorrow. You can catch that Friday. I'll be on the Buccaneer segment they do where we do a little bit of this, but without the profanity. And with Scott Smith and TJ Reeves, I'll be on that tomorrow, and it'll be broadcast, or it'll be available on Buccaneers.com on Friday if people want to check that out.
I wish I was cool enough to do those things.
You are.
No,
they're desperate if they ask me. But I mean, again, the good news is I'm sitting next to TJ Reeves, right? So I don't feel that bad about the way I look. Now, again, if I'm sitting next to Olivia Stacey, which I was the last time I did the Pewter panel, yes, I looked pretty rough. I looked like Chris Farley after a long night of cocaine and hookers.
Which is like Tuesday. Or it was Tuesday.
Or like right now.
Or like right now. All right. Big thanks to Mark. Thanks to you guys for listening. We'll get the podcast put up right after the show. Hopefully this new thing was good. Let us know. Hit us up at questions at whatthebuck.net if there are problems with the experience. Thanks to Josh Wobbles for putting this together, guys. I think it was an amazing thing. If you're still listening on Ustream, let us know as well. And we'll find out how the YouTube stuff goes. And we'll see you guys next week. We'll be on Periscope. I'm going to start using the Periscope uploads. If Periscope doesn't keep crashing on me like a piece of shit, I'll upload those to YouTube as well. It's a great tool, and I actually have a little mount in the car now, so I do it on the way to the game, and it's a lot of fun. But invariably, probably 7 out of 10 times when I go to close it, it crashes, and that kills the local store of the video. But at any rate, we will stay in touch via that mechanism. 8 people tweet at What the Buck your Philly predictions with hashtag WTBX, and we will give out these VIP tickets. So for Mark, for the entire What the Buck crew, we'll see you guys on Sunday, and go Buccaneers.